This is the 3D VIEW-MASTER fairy tale Sleeping Beauty, Pied Piper, Thumbelina. VIEW-MASTER Reel 1, Sleeping Beauty. Picture 1. Long ago in a far-off land, a beautiful daughter was born to a king and queen who had long been childless. Rejoicing, the king ordered a great feast. 12 of the kingdom's 13 fairies were invited, and one by one 11 came forward and gave the little princess gifts of beauty, wisdom, riches, and all any girl could wish. Suddenly, the 13th fairy, who had not been invited because there were only 12 golden plates, appeared and cried out, "My gift is a prophecy. In her 15th year, the princess shall prick herself with a spindle and fall down dead." Horrified, the 12 fairies said, "I cannot prevent this evil thing, but I can soften it. The princess shall not die, but shall fall into a sleep of 100 years. Picture 2. By the king's command, every spindle in the realm was burned. But one day in her 15th year, when she was left alone, the princess set about exploring the castle. Climbing at last to a tiny tower she had never seen, she came upon an old woman spinning flax. "What is that you twirl so briskly, good mother?" she asked, reaching for the spindle. Picture 3. "A spindle, child, a spindle," croaked the old woman. At that instant the princess pricked her finger on the sharp point and fell back upon a couch, where she lay as if dead. The evil prophecy had come true. Inside the castle, every living thing became as still as death. The king and queen, the servants, the dogs and horses, even the flies on the wall. Picture 4. Year by year, a hedge of thorns grew ever thicker around the castle, to the top of the highest walls. Many a king's son attempted to force his way through, lured by rumors that a beautiful princess lay sleeping inside, but the wall of thorns defied them all. Many died in the attempt. At last, many years later, there came the bravest prince of all. An old man he met by the wall of thorns warned him of the great danger, but he would not listen. "I shall break through," he cried, "though it cost me my life." Picture 5. As the prince began fighting his way through the hedge, lo and behold, the thorns changed to flowers, which bent aside to let him pass. The 100-year spell was ending. In the courtyard he found horses, dogs, and pigeons asleep. The kitchen maid still held the fowl she had been plucking when the evil spell descended. The cook still grasped the ear of the scullery boy he had been punishing. All were fast asleep, but the prince gave them scarcely a thought and hurried on, searching for the princess. Picture 6. At last he came to the tower, where she lay as she had lain for 100 years. So lovely in her sleep was she that the prince could not resist, bending down and pressing her a kiss upon her ruby lips. Picture 7. With the kiss, the long enchantment came to a complete end. The princess opened her eyes and smiled. The king and queen and every other living thing in the castle came to life and gazed around in wonderment. Not many days later, the prince and princess, who had fallen in love at once, were married in great splendor and lived happily together ever after. VIEW-MASTER Reel 2, The Pied Piper of Hamelin. Picture 1. In Hamelin town, when begins my ditty, almost 500 years ago, to see the townsfolk suffer, so from vermin was a pity. Rats, they fought the dogs and killed the cats, and bit the babies in the cradles, and ate the cheeses out of the fats, and licked the soup from the cook's own ladles. Picture 2. At length the major spoke in council. I'm sure my poor head aches again. I've scratched it so, and all in vain. Oh, for a trap, a trap, a trap. Just as he said this, what should hap? At the chamber door but a gentle tap, and in did come the strangest figure. People call me the Pied Piper. If I can rid your town of rats, will you give 1,000 guilders? 50,000 was the exclamation of the astonished major and corporation. Picture 3. Into the street the piper stepped, and out of the houses the rats came tumbling. Fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, families by tens and dozens. Brothers, sisters, husbands, wives followed the piper for their lives, until they came to the river Weser, wherein all blenched and perished. Picture 4. My 1,000 guilders, the piper said. Friend, quoth the major, what we spoke of guilders, you know, was all in joke. The piper's face fell and he cried, no, driveling, I can't wait. Beside folks who put me in a passion may find my pipe after another fashion. You threaten us, fellow? Do your worst. Blow your pipe there till you burst. Picture 5. Once more he stepped into the street, and to his lips again laid his long pipe of smooth, straight cane. Out came the children running, all the little boys and girls, with rosy cheeks and flaxen curls. Tripping and skipping ran merrily after the wonderful music with shouting and laughter. Picture 6. The major was dumb, and the council stood, as if they were changed into blocks of wood, unable to move a step or cry to the children merrily skipping by. And yo, as they reached the mountainside, a wondrous portal opened wide, as if a cavern was suddenly hollowed, and the piper advanced and the children followed. And when all were in to the very last, the door in the mountainside shut fast. Picture 7. Did I say all? No, one was lame and could not dance the whole of the way. In after years he used to say, the piper led us to a joyous land, joining the town and just at hand, where water gushed and fruit trees grew, and flowers put forth a fairer hue, and honeybees had lost their stings, and horses were born with eagles' wings, and just as I became assured, my lame foot would be speedily cured. The music stopped and I stood still, and found myself outside the hill, left alone against my will, to go now limping as before, and never hear of that country anymore. VIEW-MASTER Reel 3. Thumbelina by Hans Christian Andersen. Picture 1. There was once a woman who longed for a child. So she went to a witch who gave her a seed, saying, "Plant this and you shall have your wish." The woman planted the seed, and in the morning a flower had come up. The petals burst open, and there in the middle stood a tiny, lovely girl, no bigger than a woman's thumb. So she was named Thumbelina. Picture 2. One night, as she slept in her walnut-shell bed, a big toad hopped through the window and carried her off to a pond. "This lovely creature will be your wife," the old toad said to her ugly son. "She can live on a lily pad until time for the wedding." Picture 3. Poor Thumbelina wept over her sad fate. Hearing her, the little fish in the pool grieved for her and gnawed off the stem of the lily pad so that it floated down the stream. A butterfly wanted to help too, so Thumbelina tied her sash to it and let it tow her far away from the old toad and her ugly son. Picture 4. Thumbelina lived all alone in the woods, quite happily. But at last winter came, she was cold and there was nothing to eat. Seeking food and shelter, she came to the snug little home of a kind old field mouse, who said, "I will share my house and my larder for the winter if you will keep my room clean and tell me stories." Picture 5. Though she was warm and velvet, poor Thumbelina's troubles were not over. The mouse's neighbor was a mole, who had dug a tunnel from his house to hers. "You must marry the mole," the old mouse said. "He will give you a fine home." Thumbelina was very sad, because she loved sunshine and pretty flowers, while the mole liked only his dark burrow. But preparations went ahead for the wedding. One day, as they walked through the mole's tunnel, they came upon an injured swallow who lay in a swoon. Thumbelina nursed the bird back to health. They grew quite fond of each other, and when spring came and it was time for the bird to fly away, she wanted to go with him. But she didn't want to grieve the mouse who had been so kind, and so they bade the swallow goodbye with tears in her eyes. Picture 6. Spring and summer passed. At last it was time to marry the mole and go to live with him under the ground, never to see the warm sun and bright flowers again. Just then she heard the beat of wings overhead. The swallow had come back. "Winter is coming, little Thumbelina," he said. "I am flying off to the warm countries. Please come with me." No longer able to bear the thought of the mole's dark hole, she cried, "Yes, I'll come." He took her on his back and flew steadily for many days and nights, coming at last to his house, which was near an ancient marble palace, whose grounds were covered with beautiful flowers. Picture 7. Swooping down, the swallow put her in the middle of the loveliest flower of all, and there, to her astonishment, was a little man, scarcely bigger than herself, with a golden throne and a crown upon his head. Seeing the beautiful Thumbelina, he got up, smiling joyously. "I am the angel of the flowers," he said, "and I have been seeking these many years for a queen." Then he took the crown from his head and placed it on hers. "You shall live with me and help me watch over the affairs of the flower people forever," he said. Though he rejoiced at his little friend's good fortune, the swallow's heart was heavy because he too had loved her, and when he flew back to the land of the north, he sang of his sorrow. So to the man who wrote this story, that is how the world of every people came to learn of the adventures of tiny Thumbelina.